Hello my friends and welcome to my channel. In today's video I'm going to take you through some of my favorite signs that I have made for my hot cocoa station and my kitchen. These are cute gingerbread hot cocoa bakery style DIYs and I hope you enjoy them. The last DIY that I'm going to be working on is probably the most involved one, and it is a trash to treasure makeover. I had actually picked this easel up from a friend. She had thrifted it last year. Actually, we went thrifting together when she picked it up, and then she was no longer using it. So she gifted me with it, which was very nice of her, and I decided to create a sign for my hot cocoa station. I have seen similar signs in last year's videos from the hot cocoa decor decorating videos, and I absolutely loved it, and I thought I could recreate one since I haven't been able to find one to buy. So I am not going to be painting the wood, but I did want to do something for the face of it where the galvanized part is. So I had this buffalo check wrapping paper on hand from last year still, and I thought this would look really good as a background for this easel. So I cut it to size, and then I'm going to be using Mod Podge to apply to glue it on. But before I go ahead and add Mod Podge to the easel, I wanted to give it a wipe down because it felt like it had a little bit of dust or something on it. So I wanted to make sure that it was clean before I put Mod Podge down, and I'm just using a matte Mod Podge and a foam brush to do this. And you just want to make sure that all the little corners have the Mod Podge on as well. I pretty much just wanted to make sure that the whole piece was covered with it. I'm curious, do you guys have hot cocoa stations in your decor? I have started that tradition a few years back, and now it's a must. My kids just love it, and it has kind of grown over the years, bigger and bigger, and now it's almost a centerpiece in my dining room, and I can't wait to be decorating it this year, especially with all the new DIYs that I had created for it. In this video, as well as the previous tier tray videos, I have done quite a bit of hot cocoa pieces, so if you haven't seen that video, make sure you head on over to my Christmas playlist because it will be in there. I think I did some in Christmas in July as well for the tier tray. So once I had the Mod Podge on where I wanted, all over the place, I glued the paper on, and you just want to make sure you push out all the bubbles. I have actually had this roller, it's a decoupage roller on hand, so I wanted to give it a try, and it came with this little pusher thingy. I don't know what it's called, and so I used both of them to just smooth it out, make sure there's no bubbles anywhere, and also push the little paper into all the corners around the easel.
I can barely find the time to sleep. Yeah, I spend my time running around, keeping people pleased. But this is my favorite holiday. It's a chance to start over new, 'cause I missed you.
So once it was all nicely on there, I cut out another image or piece, I guess, on my Cricut, and I'm just cutting it to size before I put the before I weed it out and put a transfer tape on it. I just wanted it to be easier to handle. This one wasn't as hard to weed out because it was much bigger letters and a bigger design.
I'm letting go of everything but you.
I have been enjoying my Cricut, I think, the most now at Christmas time. I did use it a little bit more at fall, but I have been using it quite a bit for Christmas decor DIYs. I just love all the little things that you can, ideas you can get on Pinterest, and they all require Cricut, so I have been loving creating these. I do know that some of you might not have a Cricut, so I just wanted to say that a lot of these ideas could be done with just printing these out onto just a regular printing tape paper, and maybe even just gluing them onto your surfaces, or using a tape transfer method, which I've done several times before, and you can find that on my DIY on my channel. You could also use the hippo slide, water slides, if that's something that you want to venture out and do. They are probably cheaper than getting a Cricut machine, probably a little bit more work though. So once I was ready, I just added my transfer tape on, took the backing of the vinyl off, making sure I don't pull any other letters with it, and then I was ready to transfer it onto the easel. If you did end up having several bubbles on the wrapping paper, which I did just a couple of them, when you are rubbing the transfer tape and making sure that the letters stick, and you're using your little handy rubbing tool from Cricut, just make sure you're not pressing too hard, because you might catch that little bubble and rip the wrapping paper, tear wrapping paper. So just a little tip, just be careful and gentle when you are rubbing it. I do find that transferring images is a lot easier than transferring them onto an object, a lot easier than transferring them off of vinyl to transfer tape, or even weeding it out. I find it doesn't need as much elbow grease when you're pushing stuff down with that little rubbing tool. So I just love the way this turned out. And to finish it off, I gave it another coat on top of the Mod Podge, just so that way it all kind of looks even and the same. And I use the same Mod Podge as before and the same brush. And you want to just make sure that you get Mod Podge everywhere and into all the corners, so that way the look is even.
The good times with you, baby, this year it's just gonna be you and me, hang by the fire and chill.
For this first sign, I have been loving those really bright red signs that have like hot cocoa words on it, something written regarding a hot cocoa station. So I wanted to recreate one like that. So I'm using a Christmas red acrylic paint to paint this plaque that I had picked up at Dollar Tree. I really liked the shape of this, and actually it was a decent size as well, and I thought it would be perfect to create a sign. So I gave this plaque one decent coat of this red paint, and I also went into the sides with a smaller brush and just painted it all up, so that way if you're looking at it from every angle, you don't see the wood color, you just see red. And then with my Cricut machine on Design Space, I had found this just a hot cocoa write-up that I thought would be really perfect for this sign. So and I transferred it, I cut it out on white vinyl and transferred it on to this board. Now this was a very intricate cut and fairly small, so it did take me a little bit of time to weed it out, and then when I was transferring, just making sure that all those little letters didn't come off with the back of the vinyl. So once that was done, I transferred it onto the plaque, and I just love the way this looks, and I especially loved the letters because they had like little lines on them. It just looked really, really good. So if you have Cricut and you have Design Access, Cricut Access, you can find this there. I'm not sure if it's free or if it's part of the paid subscription. That I'm not 100% sure. But I absolutely loved the way this turned out. And then I also, once this was all nicely transferred onto the plaque, as you can see, I'm really making sure that the letters do not come up because they were coming up a little bit. I always find whenever I cut small letters, I do struggle with it. If you have a Cricut machine and you create stuff like this, do you struggle with the little letters or the smaller things that you cut, or am I just the only one that's having a hard time with this? So I did lose an eye as well as just one line. So I took my white pencil and just drew it in, and you can hardly tell that there was a mistake. Then I took just a regular white chalk and brushed it on just around the words and all over the sign, but not covering the letters. And then I took also the same chalk and just went right up against the edge just to kind of edge the plaque. And then I also took the rag, just a random rag, and just wiped it kind of off, blended it in almost. And I just love the way this turned out, and for $1.25 you can't go wrong.
Christmas memories, oh, and I've been longing to hold you close.
For the very first DIY, this is one of the signs, the long signs from Dollar Tree, and I had upcycled it several times. And I cut off the bottom layer. You can see how there were like 3 stripes, 3 sections, and I cut off the bottom section, and then I'm just trimming it to the size that would fit above my hood, which I think was 14 inches. And once I had trimmed it just using an X-Acto knife, I trimmed the little bits that were left over with just some shears, and then I just sanded it down just to smooth the edges out. Once that was done, I gave it a layer of white paint. Now I just wanted a little bit of white paint on there. Really only needed it for the edges, but I decided just to cover the whole thing, so it was very light coat. I did flip it over because I did not want it the little groove for it to have the little groove, and the one side did have that groove, so I just flipped it over and painted the other side. And then I went ahead and painted red, kind of creating a bit of a design, almost like a sign on top of the white. And I'm using the flag red acrylic paint in Apple Barrel, I think it's the brand. So I traced it out first with a thinner brush, then I filled it in with a thicker brush, and then I smoothed the edges out with my water-based red paint. And I think this just gave the edges a little bit of a smoother look. And then I cleaned it up with more white paint, just if any of the red paint got anywhere. And then I gave it a good sanding. I think this step made the sign gave it that antique look, but I did give it a really good sanding, even bringing out some of that brown paper look underneath. Then I went over to my Cricut machine and I had typed out Gingerbread Street using a BFC Christmas card font, and then I just cut that out. And I would also like to mention that today's video is part of a challenge that I am hosting. And we are doing Christmas DIYs, so there will be a playlist down below for you to check out once you are finished watching my video. And I'm using white Cricut vinyl as well as a dollar store shelf liner as a transfer tape. I have been enjoying using my Cricut lately. Just so many different options. But if you don't have a Cricut, you could have just written this out yourself. I just love the way this sign turned out, and I can't wait to see how it's going to look on top of my hood. The last project that I'm working on, it has to be my favorite out of the three. I had this scrap piece of wood laying around, so I decided to use it up. I gave it a bit of sanding, more or less just to get the cobwebs off of it because there were a ton. And then I will be using that same flag red that I've been using. But before I painted, I went ahead and taped off an edge about a centimeter. I was actually using my nail as a guide on the edges, and this will create a border. I like doing this sometimes if I don't have extra wood to add to the top to create that border. This is a great way to kind of doing this. It looks like a border, but it's not really a border type of thing. It looks like there's an extra wood over top of it, but there really isn't. It just creates that border look. And then I went ahead and I painted one coat of that red paint. Now that paint, I wanted some of that wood grain to show through, so the coat, I didn't want to put more than one coat on. As soon as I was done painting, I removed the tape off. That way it doesn't create any dryness in case if there was a blob of paint anywhere, I won't be ripping it off. So you always want to remove your tape while your paint is still wet. Once I was all done, I ended up giving this board a nice just light sanding. This just smoothed everything out. Then I went ahead over to my Cricut machine and I had cut out an image. I have actually purchased this image off of Etsy. I could have made it myself. This just saved me a ton of time, and it was, I think, under $3. So I ended up did adjust it because the image was more square and I needed it to be more rectangular, so I moved a couple things around just so it would fit more better onto my board. And then I used my vinyl that I have, the white one, and as well as the dollar store transfer tape to transfer it on. I think Etsy is a great place to get some of these images on because they have such a great variety of SVGs on there. I also have an Etsy shop as well that I have included just a few SVG files that I have made myself on there if you want to check them out. I always struggle a little bit. I struggle with weeding out small items, which I did lose some letters here. I end up going back and cutting it out separately on the Cricut and adding it separately from this image. But when you are transferring the image to any surface, I was trying to make sure that there was equal amounts on each side of red left or empty no image space left. So I just end up using a measuring tape to figure that out, so that way the image is where I want it to be and kind of centered. I think this white vinyl against this red looks so good, and the red paint on top of this board, it just darkened it up and it gave it that, in my opinion, a vintage look, that red vintage paint look, which I absolutely love. I can't wait to use this sign over in my dinette area. Hopefully I can hang it up where my sign is now, where I have a picture now, and to replace it for Christmas. Wouldn't be a DIY if I didn't make some sort of a sign. I had this sign left over. I used parts of it already for a different Christmas DIY, but I loved the color of it, so I came up with an idea what to make. I went to my Cricut machine, and using Design Space, I created a candy cane sign that I printed on vinyl. I cut out on vinyl. So I'm going to just weed it out and transfer it on. I am using just a removable vinyl and Dollar Tree shelf liner as my transfer tape.
We do if I spend it with you. Just you and nobody else. It's so good to see you again. To see you again, baby.
I did lose an E in the transfer, so I will be adding that separately because I just needed to get it off and add it.
This year, it's just gonna be you and me. Hanging by the fire chill. Isn't this how it's supposed to be? Making our Christmas memories. I've been longing to hold you.
I think this sign turned out super cute. I love the white against the red, and I think I'm going to be adding this sign actually into the tree because I think it's going to look really, really nice.